So in this time together, we're going to talk about what it means to have transformational mission involvement from your students. And this is really important because this is one of the ways that we develop and disciple our students to be involved in not just what happens on their campus, but what happens after they leave their campus, and what happens after they graduate. So kind of give a quick background on who we are. When I started here at Charlton, the year before we had about 7 students involved in missions. And that was it. That was the grand total between spring break, Christmas, Go Now. We just really had about 7 students. And then as we finished up last year, we did the count, and in the course of 7 years, the Lord had already transformed our culture. So we sent over 150 students in missions last year with spring break and Christmas and Go Now and projects that we have involved with students going. And so real quickly, just want to talk about 4 pillars of what it looks like to create a sending culture, and just kind of some foundational things. So when you start with missions with students, you've got to answer the why. And so if this is a house you're building, you've got to start with the foundational question of why missions. And if you don't answer this question, you'll never get students involved. Students have to know that there's a greater purpose behind this. It's not filling a calendar, it's not meeting a quota, but there's a bigger mission. And so you've got to be able to ask that question, why missions? And you've got to be able to give a compelling reason why. And the truth is, guys, our students are the most moldable, sendable, trainable demographic on the planet right now. They have got more free time than anybody else. It would be ridiculous for someone like me to say, all right, I'm going to move to Africa or the Northwest for 2 months. I'm going to leave my wife and kids. But for our students, their summer breaks, they can do that. And so one of the reasons that we're asking students to go on missions is because they have the time to do that. They have the energy to do that. Another reason, and this is the main reason, which you should let off with, is that God is worth it. Okay, it's not about just the lost pockets of people on your campus. It's not about the one friend in the dorm, but there are people all over the nation, all over our country, all over other campuses in Texas where the gospel is not interrupting their lives. As students sit in our BSM, one of the things that you can articulate to them is that what would your life be without a church home, without a BSM sitting and engaging you with the gospel on a regular basis? That is the story of so many college students in our nation. That is the story of so many people in our nation. That is the story of entire unreached, unengaged people groups across the world. And so the call is that God is mightier than what he's doing just on our campuses. He's mightier than what he's just doing in our states. But he deserves the praise and the worship of the nations, not our nation, of the campuses, not just our campus. And so why do missions? Because you've equipped in this time of your life to go and to do, and because we serve a mighty God. And if that's that foundational piece, if you can lay that with your students, then really you're creating and generating an urge to go and be a part of it. And you just need to begin to create some trellis work to make that work. And so if you picture this, now I wasn't an art major, so work with me here. If you picture this as you've got 4 pillars that kind of hold this thing up, okay? They kind of hold the roof up. And for us, if we can get these 4 pillars in motion, it's kind of what started the transformation of our sending culture. And the first one was that we just said missions was expected. If you're going to be a part of discipleship, if you want to grow, then you've got to go. If you want to grow, then you've got to go. If you want to see God work more in your life, then you need to extend yourself past your comfort zone even more. The more you step out of that, which is normal, which is comfort, the more you're placing yourself in a situation where the Lord can use you and shape you and mold you in much better ways. So it's expected. Missions is expected. It's the mantra. If you ever come into our building, there are Go Now posters and world maps everywhere. That is our chosen decor. If we look at a space, we say, I don't know what to put in it. We stick a world map. We stick a list of missionaries. We stick a poster from a mission project that's already been done. Missions is everything. In our building, when we talk about it, we talk about missions opportunities. We have lots of opportunities that we extend to students. It's just something that's kind of become our vocab. It's the jargon of missions. And so missions is expected. So students come into our ministry and there's almost a pressure to be involved in missions. It's expected. If you want to grow spiritually, you're involved in it. You're going to be part of the BSM. It's an expectation that you go at least once in your time here, whether it be 4, 5, 6 years. So first pillar is missions is expected. The second one is that students lead the charge. Man, friends, students are such a better representation and a better mouthpiece and advertisement than we are. I get in front of up on stage and I say, hey, you guys should be involved in missions. Missions is great, be involved. And everybody kind of looks and goes, nah, the bald fat guy is talking again. But when a student gets up and shares about how the Lord transformed their life because they worked in New York over Christmas break and came in contact with the nations, people sit up and they pay attention. Students need to be the mouthpiece. Find ways in your schedule, in your schedule of events, to give student a voice to have those conversations. Noon lunch, we talk about missions a lot. Our night worship service on Thursday nights, we try to do interviews of students so students can tell their mission stories. And so find a time, find a space for students to be able to do that. And you may say, well, I don't have any students right now that have gone and had a good experience. Then find someone else's students. And this is going to sound crazy, but we had to show Go Now promotional videos the first year of other students telling their mission stories because we just didn't have any students. But as soon as you get that 1 or that 2 students, put them in front of people, coach them, help them process what to say, but let them be the banner of your missions involvement. And so you want to find space for them to do that. This also works really good if you're trying to build your ministry partners in your local churches. When you've got students that have fantastic experiences, to put them in front of churches. We have a little church that's way out in the middle of nowhere, and every Lottie Moon season, every Annie Armstrong season, and every Mary Hill Davis season, when they do the 3 missions offerings, we send students to them, and they share their stories of their missions in Texas, their missions involvement in the U.S., and their mission involvement in the nation. In fact, I'm headed there this coming Sunday, just to thank them and give them a report. And I'm bringing a student with me to be a part of sharing the story. So missions is expected. Your students lead the charge. And the third one, and this is probably one of the most powerful ones, if you can get it out of your head that if I just announce it from stage, or I put up a banner, or I show a video, students will respond. Guys, it doesn't matter how well done our videos are. It doesn't matter how well done our posters are. It doesn't matter how well done our announcements are. This is not a generation that responds to blanket, come one, come all. This is a generation of students that respond to a personal invite. For you to sit down with a student and say, hey, listen, I've been looking over what we're fixing to do the spring break project, and I'm looking at the qualifications, and I'm looking for the things that it requires. And I've read through this, and I know you, and this is a trip for evangelism, and I've just seen the way you're sharing the gospel with people in your hall. Like, we could really use you on this team, and I think the things the Lord's doing in your life would make you a great asset for this team. Would you pray about going? Or, hey, I was looking at the Go Now trip, and there's this medical missions to Haiti, and you're a nursing major, and man, what a great way for you to use your skills for the glory of God. Would you pray about spending some time this summer in Haiti? And when you can have that personal invitation with students, it just, all of a sudden they can see kind of themselves in that. Because a lot of students, maybe they landed on our campuses and they haven't thought about missions before, especially our new believers as you've led students to the Lord. The idea of missions is just kind of a foreign concept to them. But if you can help kind of dream big and paint that picture for them, like this is this kind of trip and you would fit really well into this project because these are the things I've seen the Lord do in your life, all of a sudden it helps them see, I can do this. This is not for super Christians, this is for me. One of the things with the Go Now book, when the Go Now book comes out, I write my name across the top of it, marks a lot, so nobody takes it or gives it away. But then I kind of go through the students that I meet with, some of our leaders, and I'll just read that book and I'll say, Lord, who is it that fits this trip? And I don't look at the price, I don't look at the destination, I don't think through, well, this person comes from wealth, this person comes from poor, this person's got to take summer classes, this person can't do anything over Christmas because mom won't let him. I don't think of any of those things. I just think, as I'm reading the scripture, I'm saying, Lord, who is it? Who is it, Lord, that comes to mind when I'm reading this trip? And I'll write their name off to the side. And so I'll go through all of it. And when I finish, then I'll go find a clean book that doesn't have all everybody's names in it. And I'll write that person's name on the top, and I'll earmark it, and I'll highlight that description. And I'll approach that student saying, hey, I was praying for you the other day, and as I was reading through this book, your name came up, and I was kind of thinking about this trip and your giftings and what the Lord's doing. And would you just take this? Don't look at the price, don't look at the destination, but just ask the Lord, is this something you could do? And I've found that if I can at least place that opportunity directly in a student's hand, face to face, invite them to be a part of it, then let them wrestle with God about it. Let God do the heavy lifting in their lives. Guilt, manipulation, all those things, they're great short-term gains, but they're long-term losses. Really, you want your students to wrestle with, is God calling me to this? Could God use me in this? And is this obedience on my part if I go? Or is it disobedience if I stay? So, missions is expected. You want your students to lead the charge. Okay? Power of a personal invite. You want to invite your students. And then the last one, after you've invited students will come back with some of the greatest excuses. Now, some of them are legit. Some of them are, I physically can't because I've got 7 classes that I've got to take this summer if I'm going to graduate because my scholarships run out in August and I've got to do this. Some of them are not good excuses. Some of them are, well, I really, 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 really want to graduate early, so I'm going to take summer classes. Well, it's always good to take your student back to Scripture and say, let's weigh these excuses. Let's weigh, you said this is the reason that I can't go, and we feel like the Lord has opened up some doors for you to go. Let's just talk through that. What's your motivation for staying? Well, your motivation is you really desperately want to graduate early. Why do you want to graduate early? Has God asked you to graduate early? Now, your mom and dad may have asked you to graduate early, but has God asked you to graduate early? Well, I can't because I just don't have the money. Well, God owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. Money's never been a problem. Now, you want to be prepared as you walk through this and talk about money. You want to be prepared to help process and teach them how to do support development. And there's tons of resources out there where you can do that. But you want to just be able to walk with your students and say, all right, you've got this excuse, this reason. They may not say it's an excuse, they may give a reason. Let's walk through what Scripture says. Because the truth is, Scripture says go a lot more times than it says stay. So why is it that our default is always stay, and God's got to drag me out into the go, when most of the time Scripture says go? So our default should be good. God, I'm going to go. Is there a reason you're asking me to stay? And so begin to process with your students and say, all right, so money is maybe an issue. Maybe mom and dad. And this is a big one. As your ministry starts leading students to the Lord, and students are first generation believers, the idea of, hey, mom and dad, I joined this Christian group on campus, and they're teaching me how to read my Bible and pray, and this is what I'm learning, to, hey, this Christmas I'm going to go do a mission, or this summer I'm going to go to Lebanon. I'm going to work with Syrian refugees. Then the parents start looking and saying, I think my kid's joined a cult. This is awkward. When that happens, you want to help your students identify what does honoring mom and dad look like, and what does obedience look like to God. Because there comes a time, as our students transition from children under the authority of our parents to adults working alongside of honoring our parents, where it doesn't always mean I do what you say, mom and dad. Now, I respectfully decline or I respectfully disagree, but I don't always have to do what you say just because it's what you want me to do. And help your students navigate through that. And if you've got questions about that, and there's tons of directors and Go Now staff that have done that, and they'd be good resources for you. But you want to begin to ask the question, what are your excuses, and what does the Bible have to say about them? What's your real motive behind this? Are you afraid? And fear is not a legit reason. Money's not a legit reason. Now, there are students that will have legitimate reasons, and they've prayed through it, and the Lord's told them, no, I don't want you to go. And that's okay. We had a student who signed up for Go Now Missions man, it was project perfect for her. And as we kind of approached the deadline, she just began feeling more and more like the Lord was calling her to go home and invest in her youth group. Not to go play with the youth group, not to go jack around and take a summer off, but to go be intentional and discipling some of those junior high school girls in her small town, because if she didn't do it, no one else would. And so we rejoiced in that, because her excuse was, her reason says, I can't go to work in Georgia and work with abused women because someone else will fill that spot. But I am called to go back to my hometown in the middle of nowhere, Texas, and love on those 10 youth girls. Because I hear God saying very clearly that's what I'm supposed to do. And we rejoice in that because she heard from the Lord. She heard from the Lord and the Lord spoke and she was obedient. And the Lord did some amazing things with her youth group that year. And the Lord did some amazing things in Georgia with battered women. It just wasn't through her, because the right person went on that trip and the right person went to middle of nowhere, Texas. So the hope is, missions is a phenomenal opportunity for discipleship, for your students to grow. And a lot of times what they learn on the field, wherever it is a catalyst for what happens when they get back. We always see a surge of students coming to know Christ right after spring break, because our students go to Beach Reach, get comfortable sharing the gospel, and then come back and they realize their roommate's not as scary. And so we always see students come to know Christ after Beach Reach, because what happened on the mission field translated to what happened on our campus. So missions is a phenomenal way to transform the DNA of your culture, from selfish students to sending, selfish students to selfless missionaries. I stole that from David Wooster. But it's also a great way for you to be a part of helping them see the nations. Because many of your students don't have to stay in the town that they grew up in and the town they went to university, and they're going to be a part of what God's doing amongst the nations. Because that's the invitation. Because God is working, and He's inviting us to be a part of it. So if you've got any questions or comments, if there's anything I can do to help you, look me up. We can talk about missions. The Go Now office is obviously available to be a resource for you guys. And so let's see what the Lord could do by using Texas BSM students to change the course of cities and nations and people groups across the world.